After the crash, my head split open and blood soaked my shirt, but I stayed perfectly still, pretending I was unconscious. Through the distant wail of sirens, I heard my wife whisper, trembling, I didn't think the brakes would fail this fast." My stomach dropped. This wasn't an accident. Someone sabotaged my car. If you're watching from California, Texas, New York, or anywhere in the US, comment your state and tell me if you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe, because this story gets darker fast. I woke up before my alarm, the way I usually did when my mind was already halfway at work. The house in Katy was quiet, except for the air vent humming and the faint tap of my wife's nails on her phone. I lay there for a second, staring at the ceiling, running through my day like a checklist. Safety meeting at 9, vendor call at 11, warehouse audit after lunch. People at my company trusted me to keep things moving. They trusted me because I didn't panic. I handled problems. I carried weight. In the kitchen, I poured coffee and opened my laptop. A calendar invite blinked. 2 meetings overlapped. I shifted one, sent a quick note, then checked my badge and keys on the counter. Everything in its place. That was how I lived. That was how I stayed useful. My wife, Tasha, walked in wearing her robe, hair wrapped, eyes already sharp. She didn't say good morning. "You're leaving early," she said. "I've got an audit." She reached past me, grabbed my wallet off the counter, and slid out my debit card like she had every right in the world to do it. I watched her, waiting for the pause where she'd explain. She didn't. "What's that for?" I asked. She didn't look up. "Don't start, Malcolm. I'm handling something." That tone wasn't new. It wasn't loud, but it cut. Like I was a child asking questions in a house I paid for. "Handling what?" She finally met my eyes. Calm face, cold eyes. "Your car." I frowned. "My car's fine." "No, it's not," she said, already typing. "And don't argue. I called someone to check it." I set my mug down slowly. Not because I was scared of spilling it, because I could feel the heat rising, and I didn't want it to show. "You called somebody to check my car," I repeated. "Yes, without telling me. Because you'd make it a thing." I stared at her. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about the car. I was thinking about the way she said it, like my voice was the problem. Like my right to know was an inconvenience. "Who did you call?" I asked. She waved her hand like she was brushing off smoke. "A guy. He'll meet me downstairs." "It's nothing." Nothing. That word sat heavy. Nothing was what people called the things they didn't want you to question. I should have pressed harder. I should have taken my card back. I should have asked why my wife was making decisions about my safety like it wasn't my life. Instead, I breathed in and swallowed it. "Fine," I said. "Just tell me what he says." Tasha smiled, but it didn't reach her face. "See? That wasn't hard." I nodded like she'd won something fair. By the time I came back from grabbing my jacket, she was already on the phone, speaking low, turning her body away from me. I caught only pieces. "Yeah, the black SUV, parking garage, this morning. Hurry." I stood in the doorway, watching her back. A woman I married, a woman I'd defended, a woman I'd made room for even when she took more than she gave. I could have walked back in and asked her to repeat everything, louder, to my face, but I didn't. At 7:30, I headed down to the parking garage. The air smelled like concrete and old motor oil. My SUV sat in its spot, the same way it always did, like nothing in my life was changing. A man leaned near the passenger side, hands in his pockets, baseball cap low. He looked up when I approached, then looked past me, like he was waiting for someone else to confirm I belonged there. I stopped a few steps away, keys tight in my palm, and realized something I didn't want to admit. Silence wasn't keeping my peace anymore. It was making space for other people to move around me like I wasn't even standing there. The man by my SUV didn't say my name. He didn't introduce himself. He just tapped the passenger door with 2 knuckles like the vehicle belonged to him. "Pop the hood," he said. I didn't move right away. My eyes went past him to the stairwell, waiting for Tasha to show up and explain why a stranger was giving orders next to my car at 7:30 in the morning. She came down a minute later, phone still in her hand. "This is Luis," she said, like that was enough. Luis gave me a quick look, then crouched near the front tire. He didn't ask what I'd noticed. He didn't ask what I'd felt. He acted like he'd already decided the problem and just needed to perform. "Brake pedal feel soft?" he asked. "No," I said. He shrugged. "Still, could be air in the line." Tasha stood beside him, arms folded, watching his hands instead of my face. When I tried to meet her eyes, she looked away. I should have told him to leave. I should have asked for a receipt, a company name, a business card, anything. Instead, I checked my watch and thought about my audit. I thought about being late. I thought about being the man who always handled things. Luis wiped his hands on his jeans. "You good?" he said. "Just drive careful." Drive careful. That was the whole inspection. Tasha pressed my card into her robe pocket. I steered toward the shoulder, hoping for space that wasn't there. Horns erupted. A truck to my left boxed me in. I pumped the brake, fast, then held it down. Still nothing. The steering wheel shook as I tried to guide the weight of that vehicle around chaos. Tires screeched. Someone yelled through their window. I remember thinking one clean thought. So this is how it happens. Metal slammed. The world snapped forward. My head hit the side, then the wheel. Heat rushed down my face. My shirt clung to me. The smell of burned rubber and powder filled my nose. I didn't scream. I didn't call out. I went still. Not because I passed out, because I wanted to hear. Footsteps, a door opening, someone crying. Tasha's voice, close enough that I could picture her standing over me. "Oh my God, Malcolm, Malcolm." Then, quieter. Not for me. I didn't think the brakes would fail this fast. That sentence slid into my body like ice. I kept my eyes closed. Sirens grew louder. People spoke in quick bursts. A man leaned in and checked my pulse. Someone said my name again. In the ER, everything moved fast. A nurse with short hair and tired eyes leaned over me while they cleaned the blood from my temple. Her badge read, Renee. She checked my pupils, then looked straight at me like she could see the part of me that was pretending. "You're lucky," she said. I didn't answer. My throat felt thick. Renee lowered her voice, not dramatic, just certain. Sometimes accidents aren't accidents. My phone buzzed on the tray beside me. Tasha's name lit the screen. I listened to her voicemail through one ear while Renee adjusted my IV. Tasha's voice sounded shaken, but the story came out clean. "Baby, the traffic was crazy. You must have hit something. They said it happens. Please don't scare me like that again." I stared at the ceiling tiles while her words played. Renee walked away to the next bed, and I kept the phone pressed to my ear, letting the lie finish without interrupting it. The nurse wheeled me out to the curb with a stiff neck and gauze wrapped around my head like I'd taken a bad punch. Renee handed me my discharge papers and didn't try to soften her tone. "Follow up with your doctor," she said. "And don't ignore your gut." I nodded and slid the papers into my jacket pocket. Tasha pulled up in my brother-in-law's car, acting like she'd been crying for hours. Eyes puffy, voice sweet, hands shaking just enough to look convincing. "I thought I was going to lose you," she said. I let her talk. I didn't correct anything. I didn't ask why her story sounded cleaner than the truth I'd heard on the asphalt. My neck hurt every time I turned my head, so I stared forward and kept my answers short. "I'm fine. We're going to get through this," she said, grabbing my hand like it was hers to hold. I didn't pull away. Not yet. Back home, she tried to tuck me into bed like I was a child. She offered soup. She offered a blanket. She offered comfort the way someone offers a product. Too polished, too quick, too rehearsed. When she left the room to take a call, I sat up and reached for my laptop. The insurance app was already open on my phone. My name sat at the top, clean and bold. I scrolled through my policy details, then checked the beneficiaries section. Nothing had changed, not officially. Still, my fingers shook when I took screenshots. Not from fear, from anger I refused to waste. I saved every page. Coverage amounts, payment history, contact numbers. The claim form she could easily file while I slept. Then I opened our bank app. 2 joint accounts, 1 savings, 1 checking. I stared at the little icon that showed shared access and felt something settle in my chest. Tasha treated those accounts like a permission slip she didn't need to ask for. Not anymore. I changed the password. Updated the 2-factor authentication to my phone only. Removed her device authorization. It took 3 minutes, and it felt like the first time I'd stood up without making noise. The next morning, I drove my rental back to the apartment complex parking garage. My head throbbed every time the car hit a small bump, but I kept going anyway. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for facts. The security office sat near the entrance, cluttered with monitors and old coffee cups. A man in a wrinkled uniform sat behind the desk, flipping through a magazine. "Can I help you?" he asked, not looking up. "I need footage from yesterday morning," I said. My SUV was parked on level 2. I had an accident on the way to work. That got his attention. He straightened, eyes narrowing like he was already calculating trouble. "You'll have to talk to management. I'm not asking for a favor," I said. "I'm asking for records." He sighed and tapped the keyboard. The monitors switched, the camera angles jumping from one corner to another. He scrubbed back through the timeline, then pointed at the screen. "Here, you came down at 7:36. I leaned in, watching my own body move across the garage like a stranger. My SUV sat in frame. A figure walked near it, baseball cap, hands in pockets. Luis. The guard clicked forward. The video froze for a second. The screen went black. "What's that?" I asked. He clicked again. The feed came back, showing me stepping into the driver's seat, then pulling out. I stared at the timestamp. 1 minute missing, not a glitch, not a lag. A clean cut. "That happen often?" I asked. The guard swallowed. "Sometimes the system, it skips." "Convenient," I said. He shrugged, but his face tightened like he didn't want to be part of this conversation. As I turned to leave, Tasha's voice floated in from the hallway. She was talking to the property manager like they were old friends, laughing softly, calling him by his first name. "I'm just trying to make sure everything's okay," she said. "You know how Malcolm is." I stopped behind the corner, listening. That sentence wasn't worried. It was strategic. I walked out without letting her see me, got back into the rental, and opened my phone again. Insurance photos, bank screenshots, a note with the missing minute written in bold. Then I searched my glove compartment for the paper Luis had handed Tasha the day before. A receipt. No company name, no address, just a number scribbled at the bottom. I saved that too, then sat there with my thumb hovering over the call button. My thumb hovered over the call button, then pressed. It rang twice. "Yeah?" a man answered, voice flat. "Is this Luis?" I asked. Silence, then a quick exhale. "Who's asking?" "Malcolm," I said. "You looked at my SUV yesterday morning." He paused like he was deciding whether to hang up. "I don't remember." "You were in my parking garage," I said. "Baseball cap, passenger side. You told me to drive careful." Another pause. His tone shifted, just a little. "Man, I just check cars, that's it." "Where's your shop?" I asked. "I don't got a shop." I stared at the steering wheel, jaw tight. "You took my wife's card," I said. "So you got a place you work out of." He muttered something in Spanish under his breath, then gave me an address off Telephone Road in South Houston. No business name, just a street. "Don't come here with problems," he said. "I'm coming for answers," I replied, and ended the call. I drove down the same afternoon. My rental smelled like cheap air freshener, and my neck still ached when I turned too fast, but I kept both hands steady. The place sat behind a chain-link fence, a small garage with 2 bays and a faded sign that said, "Auto Repair," like it had been there since the 90s. 2 men worked on a pickup with the radio blasting. Nobody looked up when I parked. Luis stepped out from behind the office door as soon as he saw me. No smile, no surprise, just irritation. "I told you, no problems," he said. "Then don't create them," I answered. He tried to block the entrance with his body. I didn't push past him. I didn't raise my voice. I just held up a printed photo from the garage camera, him near my SUV. "You touched my brakes," I said. "I need to know what you did." "I didn't touch nothing," he snapped. I slid the photo back into my folder and pulled out the receipt he'd left in my glove compartment. The handwriting matched the number I called. "This is your paper," I said. "So pick one. Either you're lying to me or you're lying to yourself." Luis glanced over his shoulder, then lowered his voice. "Your wife asked me to check it," he said. "That's all." "Check it how?" I left without another word. At home that night, Tasha had already set the table like we were hosting a holiday. Her sister sat on the couch with her arms crossed. Her mother stood by the kitchen island, lips tight. Her uncle leaned against the wall like he had a right to be in my space. Tasha smiled too wide when I walked in. "Look who decided to come home," she said. Her mother didn't even greet me. "Malcolm," she started, "you need to stop this nonsense." "What nonsense?" I asked, hanging my keys by the door. "Accusing my daughter," her mother said. "After everything she's done for you," Tasha's sister scoffed. "He's stressed," she said. "He's been acting paranoid." I looked at each of them in turn, the way they spoke for her, the way they surrounded her, the way they painted me like I was unstable while my head was still bandaged. Tasha folded her arms, eyes glossy. "Baby," she said softly, "you're scaring people." I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I watched the pattern instead. The same phrases, the same timing, the same tight little performance. When they finally left, Tasha went upstairs without touching me. I waited until her footsteps disappeared, then opened my banking app again. The checking balance was lower than it should have been. A lot lower. I clicked into the transaction list and saw a transfer I didn't authorize, dated yesterday, while I was still lying in the hospital bed, listening to her lie through voicemail. My fingers stayed calm as I scrolled, even though my stomach turned. The number at the bottom wasn't a small one. The number at the bottom wasn't small. It wasn't a bill payment or a grocery run. It was the kind of transfer you make when you're trying to move something before someone notices. I didn't wake Tasha. I didn't stomp upstairs. I didn't do any of the things people expect a husband to do when his world cracks open. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table and copied the transaction ID into my notes app. Then I pulled up the account details and saw the destination. Her personal checking. Not the joint one. Not the savings. Hers. My throat tightened, not because I felt emotional, but because my mind started stacking facts the way it always did at work. If a shipment went missing, you didn't yell. You traced the chain. You checked who touched it. You looked for the point where the story stopped making sense. That's what I did with my marriage. The next morning, I drove into downtown Houston and parked near the public library. I didn't go to my office. I didn't answer emails. I told my supervisor I needed a personal day and left it at that. People respected me enough not to ask questions. Inside the library, I found a corner table and opened my laptop. The screen reflected back the bandage on my head, and for a second, I wondered what I looked like to everyone else. Another man injured, another man trying to hold himself together. I logged into our bank account and pulled 3 months of statements. I downloaded them, printed them, put them in a folder like I was preparing for an audit, because I was. 2 weeks before the crash, there was a deposit into Tasha's account. The memo line read, "Service." That's it. No company name, no invoice number. Just a word that could mean anything. The amount made my stomach twist. It wasn't gift money. It wasn't side hustle money. It was a payment. A week later, another small deposit. Same memo. Then the day before the wreck, one more. My fingers paused over the trackpad. I looked at the dates again. It lined up too clean. 3 deposits, then a brake failure, then a transfer out of our joint checking while I lay in the hospital with an IV in my arm. I sat back, slow, and let the quiet settle around me. People in the library flipped pages, tapped keyboards, whispered to each other like life was normal. Meanwhile, I was staring at proof that the person who slept next to me had been preparing to cash out. I pulled up the insurance policy on my phone again, scrolled through it with a steady thumb, and took more screenshots. The payout amount stared back at me like a dare, the kind of money that makes people think ugly thoughts. I closed my eyes for a second and heard her voice on the highway again. I didn't think the brakes would fail this fast. Not, I didn't know. Not, what happened. Not, help him. Fast. That word didn't belong to a wife who was surprised. My phone vibrated. A text from Tasha. "Where are you?" Then another. "We need to talk. You're acting crazy." Then another, 2 minutes later. "If you keep doing this, you're going to ruin everything." I didn't reply. I put the phone face down and kept working. I saved the bank files to a drive. I emailed copies to myself from a private account she didn't know existed. Then I called the insurance company and asked one simple question about claim procedures, keeping my voice neutral, like a man asking for information, not a man asking for justice. When I left the library, my head felt heavier, but my steps felt lighter. Not because I was happy, because I was no longer confused. Night came without warning. the way it always did when you're trying not to think. I drove to a diner off I-10, the kind of place that stayed open late because people still had nowhere else to go. Renee sat in a booth near the back. She'd texted me earlier and asked if I'd eaten. That was all. No pity, no lectures, just a check-in. I slid into the booth across from her and rested my hands on the table. She looked at my bandage, then at my eyes, and waited. "I think my wife knew," I said. Renee didn't gasp. She didn't touch my hand. She didn't act shocked for my benefit. "Tell me what you have," she said. So I did. I kept it plain. The missing minute on the camera, the mechanic with no shop, the deposits marked service, the transfer out of the joint account. Renee listened, jaw tight, then took a sip of coffee like she needed something to do with her hands. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Yeah." She held my gaze. "Are you sure you're the only one still trying to keep this marriage alive?" That question landed harder than anything Tasha had said. It didn't accuse, it didn't comfort, it just cut through the fog. I sat there and realized how many times I'd swallowed disrespect and called it patience. How often I'd paid for peace that only existed for other people. My phone buzzed again. Another text. "Come home. My mom says you need help." Then another. "If you don't answer me, I'm calling your job." Then another. "Please, stop doing this to us." Threats and pleading, back to back, like she was trying every key on the ring to see which one still opened the door. I stared at the screen without blinking. Renee watched me, not the phone. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I slid the phone into my pocket, opened my folder, and checked that every page was in order. Then I took out a pen and wrote down one more thing I needed: a lawyer's name, a private investigator, and the exact time I was going back to that garage. Renee called the waitress over and asked for the check, and I let her, because I needed to keep moving before doubt tried to return. Renee walked out of the diner first, keys already in her hand. I followed a few steps behind, folder tucked under my arm like it weighed more than paper. She didn't ask me to calm down. She didn't tell me to pray. She just stood by her car and looked at me the way someone looks at a man deciding whether to save himself. "You need help that isn't emotional," she said. "You need professionals." I nodded. "I know." She gave me a number, written on the back of a receipt. "Private investigator," she said. "A woman. ex-HPD. She doesn't play." I folded the receipt and put it in my wallet. Renee waited a beat, then spoke again. "And get a lawyer," she added. "Not a friend who knows a guy. An actual one." I got in the rental and didn't drive home. Instead, I went straight to a small office building near downtown, the kind with law firms stacked behind tinted glass. A friend from work had mentioned a civil attorney once when a vendor tried to sue the company. I hadn't needed him then. I needed him now. The receptionist took one look at my bandage and waved me in without questions. Attorney David Kim sat behind a desk with files piled high, sleeves rolled up, reading glasses low on his nose. He listened while I laid out facts, not feelings. Missing minute on camera. Mechanic with no business license. Deposits into my wife's account. Transfer out of the joint checking. The whisper after the crash. Kim didn't react like a man hearing a dramatic story. He reacted like someone hearing a pattern. "Do you have the voicemail?" he asked. I played it. He nodded once. "Good," he said. "Keep that. Don't confront her again without witnesses, and stop using the joint account." "I already locked it down," I replied. Kim's mouth tightened in approval. "Smart," he said. "You'd be surprised how many people don't." He went through my insurance policy line by line. Not out loud, just scanning, tapping the page with his pen when something mattered. "She benefits if you die," he said finally, voice even, "and she can file a claim quickly. That's why you need to document everything now. Every call, every message, every expense. Names, faces, anything." I wrote Luis, Tasha, the guard, the manager. And then, because I couldn't ignore it, I wrote her family. Kim leaned back. "You're going to need a PI," he said, "and I'm going to send a preservation request for that camera footage. Even the missing minute leaves a trail." I left his office with a retainer receipt and a plan. By noon the next day, I met the investigator Renee recommended. Her name was Marisol Vega. She looked like she'd been doing this work long enough to stop caring who felt offended. No makeup, no softness, just a notebook and a sharp stare. We sat in a coffee shop near Buffalo Bayou. I handed her my folder. She asked for access to my phone data, explained the legal process, and told me what not to do. "Don't delete anything," she said. "Don't threaten anyone. Let them hang themselves." I went back to work 2 days later. I kept my head down and did my job. People asked how I was doing. I gave the same answer every time. I'm good. That afternoon, as I pulled out of the parking lot, a gray sedan eased out behind me. It stayed 2 car lengths back, followed through 3 turns, then slowed when I slowed. I didn't speed up. I didn't panic. I took a different route, made a loop, and watched it mirror me. At a red light, I glanced at the rear view. The driver wore a cap pulled low. The light changed. I turned into a grocery store lot, parked, and waited. The sedan passed without stopping. My phone buzzed an hour later. An email alert. New login detected. My account, accessed from a device I didn't recognize. I changed every password in my car, fingers moving quick, not shaking. Then another message came through, this time from an unknown number. "Don't dig any deeper." I stared at the screen until it went dim, then turned the phone over on my passenger seat and drove straight to Marisol's office without calling anyone back. Marisol didn't flinch when I showed her the unknown message. She read it once, then slid my phone back across the desk. "That means you're close," she said. "Or it means I'm stupid," I replied. She gave me a look that shut that down. "It means somebody's nervous," she said. "Keep your routine. Don't meet anyone alone. And if your wife asks for a conversation, make it public." Tasha didn't wait long. The next day, she texted me a location like she was scheduling an appointment. "We need to talk. Noon. Common bond." I didn't answer. I still showed up. Not because I wanted closure, because I wanted to see what she thought she could do. The cafe was packed, lunch crowds spilling into the aisles. Tasha sat at a small table near the front, close enough for strangers to hear, but far enough to look innocent. She waved when I walked in, smiling like a woman who'd been wronged. I slid into the chair across from her. No hug, no kiss, just a steady stare. "I'm glad you came," she said, loud enough for the next table to glance over. "Say what you need to say," I told her. Her smile tightened. She reached into her purse and pulled out a tissue like she'd practiced. "You've been scaring me," she said, voice climbing. "You've been acting unpredictable." I didn't react. "Unpredictable how?" I asked. Tasha let out a shaky breath and looked around, letting people see her face. "The way you've been checking accounts, changing passwords, accusing me," she said. "I don't even recognize you." A woman in line slowed down, watching. A man near the window leaned back like he wanted to hear more. Tasha kept going. "You're making things up," she said. "You're obsessed with this accident like it's some conspiracy." I watched her hands. They weren't trembling, not really. Her voice stayed steady under the fake cracks. "You said the brakes failed too fast," I replied, quiet. Her eyes flickered for half a second. "What?" "You heard me." She leaned forward and raised her volume again, like she needed the room on her side. "This is exactly what I mean," she said. "You're twisting words. You're paranoid. You're emotionally abusive, Malcolm." That word hit like a slap. Abusive. She chose it on purpose. That wasn't a feeling. That was a label, a weapon. I felt something old rise up in me, something I'd buried for years. The memory of being talked over. The memory of people assuming the worst because of the way I look, the way I carry myself, the way my silence gets mistaken for guilt. My jaw tightened. My pulse stayed even. I looked her in the eye. "You brought me here to put on a show," I said. Tasha's lips pressed together. She dabbed her eyes again, then nodded like she was brave. "I brought you here because I'm scared of you," she said, "and I'm not going to keep pretending I'm safe." I didn't give her what she wanted. No anger, no outburst, no scene. I stood up, pushed my chair in, and placed cash on the table for the coffee I didn't drink. "I'm done talking," I said. Tasha's voice followed me as I walked out. "See?" she called. "He can't even look at me. He knows what he's doing." I didn't turn around. Outside, my phone buzzed with a new email, then another, then a voicemail from an unknown number. I ignored all of it until I got to my car. Then I saw the notification from Kim's office. Subject: Emergency filing received. I opened it, and the words blurred for a second before my brain caught up. Petition for psychological evaluation. Request for temporary restriction of access to marital assets. Supporting statement. Fear for safety. Tasha hadn't come to the cafe to fix anything. She came to set a trap that would sound believable on paper. I sat in the driver's seat and didn't start the engine. My hands rested on the steering wheel, still. Kim called a minute later. They filed this an hour ago, he said. It's aggressive. Can they do it? I asked. They can try, he said. And the court might grant temporary orders if you don't respond fast. I didn't argue. I didn't swear. I didn't ask why life worked like this. I opened my email, attached every document I'd collected, and sent it to Kim and Marisol in one message. Bank statements, camera timestamps, the mechanic's receipt, the voicemail file. Then I copied the unknown threat message into the same thread. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Tasha. You did this to yourself. I locked the screen, put the phone in the cup holder, and drove straight to Kim's office without stopping for anything else. Kim didn't waste time when I got to his office. He had the petition printed out, marked with sticky notes, and a legal pad covered in clean handwriting. This is a pressure move, he said. They want you defensive. They want you emotional. They won't get it, I replied. Kim nodded once. Good, he said. Now we play it smart. He explained what to file back, how to respond without sounding angry, how to protect my accounts legally, how to document harassment. Then he looked up and asked the question that mattered. Can you get her to talk? She already talks, I said, just not when anyone's listening. Kim slid a small device across the desk. Texas is one-party consent, he said. That means if you're part of the conversation, you can record it. Don't hide it on her. Keep it on you. Let her speak freely. I picked it up and turned it over in my hand. It wasn't bigger than a car key fob. Simple, quiet, legal. That night I went home like nothing had changed. I didn't sleep in the bed. I took the guest room. Tasha let me. She was too busy building her story. The next morning she texted again. I don't want this to get ugly. Then, 10 minutes later, let's meet and talk like adults. Kim had told me not to meet her alone. Marisol had told me the same. So I set it up where there were cameras and people coming in and out, but still enough privacy for her to forget herself. A small cafe in Sugarland, near the offices and boutiques. Mid-afternoon. Busy, but not chaotic. Tasha arrived dressed like she was going to church. Hair done, calm face, eyes swollen on purpose. She sat across from me and sighed like she'd carried the weight of our marriage alone. I hate that it's come to this, she said. I placed my phone on the table, screen down, and clipped the recorder inside my jacket pocket. My hands stayed visible. My tone stayed flat. Talk, I said. She blinked, then softened her voice. I've been trying to protect us, she said. From what? I asked. Tasha folded her hands and leaned forward. From you spiraling, she said. From you ruining everything we built. You don't see how you're acting. I let a short silence stretch between us. I heard you after the crash, I said. Her shoulders lifted. You were unconscious. I wasn't, I replied. Her eyes widened, just for a moment, then narrowed again like she was switching strategies. So what? She snapped, then caught herself and softened it. Malcolm, I was scared. I didn't know what I was saying. I watched her mouth as she spoke, the little pauses, the way she chose certain words. You said the brakes failed fast, I said. That's not something you say if you think it's an accident. Tasha exhaled and leaned back, irritation slipping through the cracks. Okay, she said. Fine. I knew there was an issue. I didn't move. How? I asked. She rolled her eyes like I was slow. Because I handled it, she said. I called Luis. I paid him. I tried to fix it before you turned it into one of your big control things. It wasn't fixed, I said. I know, she snapped. And now look at us. I waited, let her hang in the space she'd created. Tasha's voice dropped. It went too far, she muttered. What went too far? I asked. Her jaw clenched. She looked around, then back at me. The whole thing, she said. This plan. This mess. My stomach tightened, but my face didn't change. Plan, I repeated. Tasha's eyes flashed with frustration, like she'd realized she'd stepped wrong. She tried to fix it fast. I mean, everyone had ideas, she said. My family, they talk. They say things. Like what? I asked. Her lips pressed together. Then she sighed, heavy and tired, like she was confessing a burden instead of a crime. Like you're always in the way, she said. Like everything would be easier if you were gone. The words came out too clean, too honest. She stared at me and kept going, voice low and sharp. Do you know what it feels like, she said, to live with a man who thinks he owns the air in the room? You're always the hero, always the good one, and I'm supposed to just stay grateful. I didn't answer. Tasha leaned forward again, eyes hard now. I didn't want you to suffer, she said. I just wanted it to be done. My fingers stayed still on the edge of the table. Done how? I asked. Her mouth twisted, half anger, half exhaustion. If you had died, she said, like it was a practical detail, the insurance would have paid out. I wouldn't have to fight you for anything. Everything would be easier. I held her gaze and let the silence sit heavy between us. No apology, no shame, just convenience. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A message from Marisol. Background check came back. Luis Moreno, prior fraud charge. Also found a 42-minute call from Tasha to her uncle the morning of the crash. Timing matches the missing minute. I kept my eyes on my wife while I read it. Tasha reached for her purse and stood up. I'm done talking, she said, voice snapping back into control. I don't feel safe. She walked out, leaving her untouched coffee and her confession hanging in the air, while I stayed seated long enough to turn off the recorder and slide it into my folder with everything else. Tasha didn't come home after the cafe. She sent a text later that night. I'm staying with my mom. Don't contact me. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Kim and Marisol, then put my phone on the charger like it was any other day. My hands moved steady. My mind stayed clear. Kim scheduled the meeting for Friday afternoon in his downtown office. He wanted witnesses. He wanted a record. He wanted the kind of setting where people couldn't twist the story later and call it he said, she said. Tasha showed up with her mother and her uncle. The uncle I'd never liked, the one who spoke too loud at family dinners and always asked what I made at work like he was counting my pockets. He wore a dress shirt and a fake calm. Her mother carried a Bible like it was armor. Tasha walked in last. She looked smaller than usual, cheeks drawn, eyes shiny. She knew exactly what she was doing. Kim stood when they entered and shook hands like this was business, because it was. He offered water. He pointed to chairs. He waited until everyone sat before he spoke. Thank you for coming, he said. This meeting is being documented. Tasha's uncle laughed. Documented, he repeated. Man, y'all always want paperwork. Kim didn't smile. Yes, he said, because paperwork doesn't lie. I sat to the side, quiet, folder in my lap. Tasha kept glancing at me like she was trying to pull emotion out of my face. Kim started with simple questions. Mrs. Hayes, he said, did you arrange for Mr. Hayes's vehicle to be inspected the morning of the crash? Tasha nodded, slow. Yes, she said. Because I was worried. Who did you contact? Kim asked. A mechanic, she replied. Name? Kim pressed. Tasha hesitated, then said it. Luis. Kim wrote it down. Did you pay him? He asked. Yes, she said, voice trembling now. With my own money. Her uncle leaned forward. She was just trying to help, he said. This man been acting strange ever since that crash. Kim held up a hand. I'll ask you to let her answer, he said. Tasha wiped her eyes with a tissue. Her mother stared at me like I'd walked into church wearing mud. Kim moved to the next question. When you arrived at the crash scene, he asked, what did you believe caused the accident? Tasha looked at me, then away. I thought, the brakes failed, she whispered. Kim nodded like he expected it. Did you say that out loud? He asked. Tasha swallowed. I don't remember, she said. Kim glanced at me, and I reached into my folder. My hands didn't shake when I placed the recorder on the table. Kim connected it to a small speaker, then looked at Tasha. We have an audio recording, he said. We're going to play it now. Her face went still. "What recording?" her mother snapped. Kim didn't answer. He pressed play. Tasha's voice filled the room, clear as day. "If you had died, the insurance would have paid out. I wouldn't have to fight you for anything. Everything would be easier. No sobbing, no confusion, just a statement." Her uncle shifted in his chair. Her mother's mouth opened, then shut again. Tasha looked at the floor like she could fall through it. Kim didn't pause it. He let the rest run. The part where she admitted paying Luis. The part where she said her family talked. The part where she said I was in the way. When it ended, the silence was thick. Nobody rushed to defend her, not even her uncle. Kim slid a stack of papers across the table. "This is the tow yard report," he said. "Brake fluid drained, lines disturbed, non-OEM component. That is not a coincidence." He placed another page down. "Bank statements," he added. "Deposits into Mrs. Hayes's personal account labeled service. Timing matches the crash." Another page. "Phone records," he said. "A 42-minute call between Mrs. Hayes and her uncle the morning of the incident. It begins before the camera cut and ends after the vehicle leaves the garage." Tasha's uncle went pale. That don't mean nothing," he said, but his voice didn't carry. Kim looked at him. "It means a jury will hear it," he said, "and the insurance company will see it, and law enforcement will investigate it." Tasha started crying then, real tears, but they came too late. She reached for her mother's hand. Her mother didn't take it right away. "Malcolm," Tasha whispered, "please, you don't have to do this." I didn't speak. I didn't lean forward. I didn't soften. Kim turned to me. "Are we filing?" he asked. I nodded once, then opened my phone and pulled up Marisol's message with Luis's address, his record, and every name tied to him, and slid it across the desk. Marisol met us at the police station with a folder so thick it barely closed. She didn't talk about feelings. She talked about timelines, records, and how quickly people started lying once uniforms showed up. Luis got picked up first. That part happened fast. A few detectives went down to the shop off Telephone Road, asked the wrong questions in the right order, and watched him fold. He wasn't loyal to anybody. He was loyal to money, and when money stopped protecting him, he started protecting himself. Tasha didn't get the chance to fix her story. Not after the audio, not after the bank trail, not after the phone record showing the long call with her uncle on the morning of the crash. Her mother tried to speak to me outside the station, Bible still tucked under her arm. "Malcolm, you're a good man," she said. "Don't let anger make you sin." I didn't answer her. I didn't argue religion with a woman who only pulled scripture out when she wanted control. Kim stepped between us and guided me toward the car like that conversation wasn't even worth a breath. The insurance company opened their own investigation and froze the claim before anyone could touch a dime. My job let me take time off without questions. Renee checked on me every other day, never asking me to forgive, never telling me to heal faster. She just reminded me to eat, to sleep, to keep my shoulders down. Months moved in a blur of court dates, paperwork, and quiet decisions. Every step forward felt like lifting weight with a bruised body. Still, I didn't miss a deadline. I didn't lose a document. I didn't give Tasha a single moment alone with me. The trial came sooner than I expected. Kim said cases like mine didn't always make it this far, but the evidence had teeth. The state didn't like attempted murder dressed up as bad luck. The courthouse in downtown Houston smelled like old carpet and coffee. People sat on benches with folders and tight faces, waiting for their names to get called. I sat beside Kim, hands folded, watching Tasha walk in with a public defender. She wore a plain blouse, hair pulled back, no jewelry, no performance. When she looked at me, her eyes searched for something. Rage, grief, a crack. Nothing showed. The prosecutor laid it out like a report. The sabotaged brakes. The mechanic paid under the table. The bank deposits labeled service. The missing minute on the garage camera. The long phone call to her uncle before I ever pulled out of my spot. Then the audio played. Tasha's voice filled the courtroom again, calm and practical. "If you had died, the insurance would have paid out. I wouldn't have to fight you for anything. Everything would be easier." She cried when her attorney stood up. Tears rolled down her cheeks and her shoulders shook, but it didn't move anything inside me. Those tears showed up when consequences arrived, not when I bled on the highway. The judge listened without drama. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't grandstand. He spoke once, firm and short, then looked down at the paperwork in front of him like this was a decision that should have been made the moment she chose money over a life. Handcuffs clicked. A bailiff guided her toward the side door. Tasha turned her head like she wanted one last look, one last chance to pull me back into the story where I played the forgiving husband. I kept my eyes forward. Outside, the Texas heat hit hard. Kim handed me a stack of final documents, account closures, asset separation, legal notices that would end every shared access point she'd ever used like a key. I signed them without shaking. Renee stood near the courthouse steps, waiting like she'd promised she would. She didn't smile. She just nodded and held out a bottle of water. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, and meant it. We walked to my car without rushing. I opened the door, put the folders on the passenger seat, and sat behind the wheel. The engine started on the first turn of the key. My phone buzzed once with an unknown number. I didn't check it. I pulled out into traffic, merged like any other driver, and headed back toward Katie with the paperwork beside me and nothing left to explain to anyone.